And I'm super excited to be here too, because this is one of my very favorite decks. I discovered this deck. Now I forget the name of the shop in Salem.
Oh yeah, it's Jen's shop.
Yeah. There's a shop. There's a little shop in Salem, Massachusetts. It's just a kiosk inside of another store, and I would troll her online offerings every once in a while because she had a unique set of independent decks, and I saw the first edition of the Lilifer Tarot there and picked it up. And then when I saw Marion was doing a Kickstarter for a new gold edition, I was really excited about it. And we'll talk a little bit more about this new edition and what is a little more, well, what the gold means in the gold edition, I guess we should say. But before that, I wanted to talk to you about your background and how you came to create the artwork for this deck, because you're both the creator and the illustrator or the artist behind the deck. So do you want to talk a little bit about, well, let me say this. There's one thing that Marion wrote in the little white book, which in the new edition is a little colored book, because the images are colored in there. And she has a quote that says, "Love rules where fear has been reclaimed." And I just love what that means. And you also have an oracle deck that you created before this called the Reclaim Oracle. So maybe start a little bit with your history and as an artist and coming up through Reclaim to create Lilifer. It's a lot, I know.
Yeah, I think I should start with that quote. What did I say? It was,
you said love rules where fear has been
reclaimed as a part of us. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's my approach with pretty much everything I do. I'm very, very interested in the notion of shadow work and the idea that within us we have many parts that we are not conscious of, and we have repressed them and disowned them as a result of trauma, and usually in childhood. And so part of growing up and evolving and becoming our full selves is journeying back into those shadows to retrieve those little parts and integrating them as our full self. So that was my approach with Reclaim, and that's also the way I approach the tarot as well.
And both of these decks share certain commonalities, but they're also distinct. First of all, Reclaim is an oracle deck, and Lilifer is a tarot deck. And because of it being a tarot deck, there is a level of rule that goes with that, right? Whereas with an oracle deck, you can sort of create what you want to create. Can you talk a little bit about how you developed Reclaim as a deck, and how that led you to Lilifer?
So when I created Reclaim, I wanted to build a deck around that same notion of shadow work, because it was something that I wasn't really seeing in that the tarot or oracle world. At least it was a lot of very surface decks, and I like to go deep and I like to go dark. So that's what I wanted to create. That's why Reclaim has so many cards that represent quote unquote, negative emotions. To me, there are no such thing as a negative emotion. They might feel bad, but they're not bad in of themselves. So with Lilifer, well, I kind of, I'm not sure actually.
Well, there's a difference in the imagery.
Yeah.
The Reclaim is
it's just
kind
two
of
colors,
a monochrome
right? Yeah,
deck,
it's
right?
just two colors, very black and this like light pink, like a soft color. I think I was missing color at that point, and I just needed to express my joyful, bright side, which I don't usually show very much. I feel it inside, I just don't show it on my face. But I just had an urge to use color. and it's so much easier to convey emotion with colors, honestly, but also in shapes and symbols, and that's why the deck is very flowy, to illustrate also the spectrum that emotion is, really. It's like a full rainbow of different, colors and feelings, and I think that's Lilifer's pretty good at showing that.
You exploded with colors in
A
this
little
deck.
bit. I wasn't too confident with that at first, but I don't know, it just came through, so I just had to trust it.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous. There's so much color in this deck and so much movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, because the movement, I actually feel it. So when I sit down with my watercolors, I'm in front of a blank page, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just try to connect with, say I have to illustrate the Two of Cups, I'm going to tune into my experience of what the Two of Cups means for me, but then I'm also going to connect to some kind of higher knowledge that I'm not really sure what it is, but I just know it's there, right? And I just trust that it's just going to flow through me, the vessel, and come out into different shapes and colors, and that flow, that impulse, that I feel it in my body, and that's what I represent on the paper.
So when you started to make this deck, so you were living in Europe first, and then came here and were living up in the high desert in Joshua Tree.
Both decks were created in the desert. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And when you sat down to create any of the images in this deck, and what is the process? I know you don't have an idea of what it's going to look like, but do you know that you're sitting down to draw the Queen of Swords, for example?
Well, I remember when I was illustrating the tarot deck, I made a choice to just follow the chronology of the tarot deck, because I knew I would get too distracted and too scattered. So I need to have a kind of a system in place to be able to focus my energy and allocate time and energy to each card. So I started with the major arcana, I started with the Fool, and then moved my way up. And it made sense also because the tarot is a journey. So it made sense to go chronologically and follow that journey and grow as I created it.
The Fool card in this deck is unlike any that I've seen in another deck. It's more than just the Fool. It's a panoply of characters. It's like a stage. Can you talk a little bit about creating that first card?
Well, I feel like I felt like the Fool because I didn't know what I was embarking upon. It was just very whoa, this whole world I'm about to create, I don't know what it's going to be like, what it's going to look like, what it wants to be. So I was starting to see little things and have a sense of the colors and the different characters, and I think that's why they're in the cards. You see a little flying green dog and these little snakes flying around, and you have all the colors are there, so it's kind of like a little entry point really into the rest of the deck.
Yeah, and there's some echo of that scene in the world card, I feel like, too,
yes.
And a couple of the other cards.
Yeah, it kind of circles back.
And the Wheel of Fortune also.
Yeah, which is halfway through, right? So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were creating these characters, did you did you have conversations with them as you were doing the cards, or were you said that you're channeling some higher sense or some higher artistic power? Did you lose yourself in it?
A little bit. It always feels like it's coming half from me and half from somewhere else. So part of it is my own filters, but I think it is like a higher knowledge that goes through my filters, my experiences, my knowledge of the tarot, of the world, my visions. And so it's very much a teamwork, really. That's how it felt. I feel like I was thinking about it on my way here, how even when I speak about the deck, it feels like it's not just my work. And I feel like I get to hide behind the fact that we were a team. The same way I would hide, behind my mom when I was little, because I was shy. I was like, yeah, but it's not me, it's them. Like, don't blame me for like making these things that don't make sense. I thought I had an excuse because it wasn't just coming from me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Do you feel more comfortable owning it now with the reception?
Oh, not really. I mean, it's still not. It's still not really mine. I was reading the booklet earlier, and I was like, why did I write this? It almost didn't sound like me. It was a little too, a little woo, but like in a very eloquent way. You know how the divine has a way of like using these pretty words, and I was like, I don't talk like that. I'm way more like clumsy. But I don't know, it's funny.
When you sat down to do an image, I remember you telling me that you created this deck very quickly. Mm-hmm. When you would sit down to work on a card, would you finish it in one sitting?
Usually, yes. If I don't, it's usually no good. Yeah. Well, that's why I like watercolor, because I'm someone who needs to work fast and be done fast. Otherwise, I either get bored or I start doubting myself a lot, and I usually give up. So watercolor, because it dries so fast, you have to work fast. And I also like using so much water. It helps me stay in that flow again, So yeah, I made it fast because I always have this sense of urgency. I think Reclaim was created in just 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
The whole deck. Yeah, it was crazy. Just drawing nonstop. It happened so fast, and it was a little, I was a little dizzy when I was done.
I was going to say, you must have felt did you feel depleted or energized?
Energized, and when I went to bed at night, I couldn't wait to wake up the next morning and continue. Yeah, I would get angry about the sun going down and having to go to sleep. So that still happens when I'm in creative phase.
That's pretty incredible. I think it's also interesting that you created both decks in the high desert, and they're water-based. It's a water-based medium.
It was pretty dry out there.
Yeah.
But again, just water, I guess. I feel a lot of emotions, like a lot of people do. But actually, after I created Reclaim, I was diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder, and all of a sudden, I understood why I felt so much all the time with so much intensity. And it made a lot of sense that I would be drawn to create a deck that just represented emotion and the different ways it felt in the body, and helping people how to just tell them it's okay to feel those things and just take a moment and be with that.
Sit with what feels uncomfortable, maybe.
Yeah, especially the uncomfortable. Yeah, otherwise it's too easy.
Oh, some of us like easy.
That's okay.
I remember when we were talking earlier, I asked you about the creatures or characters that are that populate both decks. Mm-hmm. These are large characters. If they're not round and kind of big, they're stout and sturdy. And why? And you're so skinny. And why what is it that resonates about these decks? And I remember what you told me. Can you talk a little bit about why these characters look the way they do?
So before I created any work like that, I used to draw very, very tiny characters, very skinny and very like in these tortured postures, like Egon Schiele type postures, very very painful. But then when I created Reclaim, to me there was no way I was going to do that. They had to be round and curvy and bold, because their role was to hold emotion. And it's also an invitation to be present with your feelings and inhabit all that space without holding back. So again, it's an invitation to feel. And with Lilifer, it was the same thing.
You created this deck, which I didn't realize when I first got it and was reading with it and meditating with it, and now I look at it and I think, how did I not realize that? As a Marseille style deck with influence of Rider-Waite Smith.
Yeah,
Can you talk a little bit about
the
that?
structure of the Marseille deck? Well, yeah, because at the very beginning I was inspired by an old Spanish tarot deck that I love, and which follows the Marseille structure where strength is the 11th card and justice is the 8th card. And I just was used to that and I liked it. And I like strength to be number 11. It's like my favorite number and I love that card. So I thought it would be nice if it was in that place. But the Marseille for me is hard to read because when the pip cards, you just have, the cups and the wands and there's just not much going on for me to interpret from because I'm a visual person and that's how I interpret tarot. I look at a picture, I notice the details, the symbols, the colors, and that's how I draw a meaning. And I know a lot of people read like that too. So I really wanted my deck to have visually, inviting cards all the way through.
I was going through the deck again this morning and pulling out some of my favorite cards. And by the way, Marion brought a book of originals.
It's here.
Which you guys are welcome to look through at the end. And we were looking through there and I was pointing out some of my favorites that I had picked. And one of my favorites is the Four of Cups. But it's hard to pick a favorite. But that one is so expressive of that emotion, the complexity of that emotion. So you have this vibrancy, this life that is in the deck, and then it's like visual candy, but then it plugs in emotionally and it stimulates intellectually as well. So I'm curious to know, and that's not my only favorite card, I have a lot of them, but I'm curious to know what some of your favorite cards in the deck are, or some of your favorite characters in the deck.
It changes every once in a while. I actually have the High Priestess in my pocket right now. Because I actually didn't really like how it turned out at first. Until it was published the second time, I still didn't like it. And a couple weeks ago, I was reading for myself, and she kept popping out. So I've had it on my desk for a couple of weeks, and I really like her now. I feel like we understand each other better. I don't know. I have little relationships with them. It changes all the time.
That's really cool.
I love this strength card. I like how curvy the lioness and like those crazy curves. It was really fun to create too. I remember drawing it, having so much fun. I was just so smiling. The Queen of Pentacles. I like the whole suit of Pentacles. I used to be afraid of the Pentacles in the tarot because I was having such a hard time connecting with my abundant self and so much difficulty finding my place in the world in a material way, in a physical way. So I was very whenever I pulled Pentacles, I was like, no, let me shuffle again. I don't like this. So it was completely in denial. And now I love the Pentacles because I feel like I'm in a better place creatively. I mean, I'm able to express myself in a healthier way, and I'm able to connect through this. And it's been very healing for me. So.
Does that transfer for you to other decks? Like, so you're less afraid of Pentacles?
And all tarot. Yes, yeah.
That's
them.
Very cool. Do you have conversations with them? I mean, you're carrying the High Priestess around in your pocket. Do you
It's like, I feel like she's protecting me these days. There's things she needs me to know, so I'm keeping her around until I get it. I'm not really sure yet.
I had something kind of funny happen the other day. So I bought a Crow Tarot deck from MJ Cullinane, and she had included in the shipment a reading, like a sealed card reading, one card reading. And I never opened it. It's been sitting in my closet for over a year. And the other day, I was talking to somebody about coming here and doing this and talking to them about you and the deck, and I decided to open the card and it was the High Priestess.
Oh, that's cool.
And I thought that's pretty cool because Marion is kind of like the High Priestess right now, and the High Priestess is with you as well.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I love it.
But that's tarot, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. No coincidences.
Right. You have a lot of symbols on the cards, and you work through not only the elements and astrology and other planetary symbols, but you also have something that you did differently in this deck, but you keep, which is the Arabic numerals versus the Roman numerals.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little, not just about that, but can you talk a little bit about how you populate the different cards with the different symbols throughout and why?
Well, it was really important to me to have first the elements in the cards. I find that, I mean, I didn't learn tarot that way, but I wish I would have, because I feel like when you understand those basics, the connection with the zodiac and the elements, it really helps you get a sense of the whole structure and what it means. And so I actually learned it backwards. I'm still learning now the elements and the zodiac and the connections, but I feel like knowing those helps me add a lot of depth to my readings. That's why I wanted to include them, because I feel like it's a good deck for beginners, because you have those symbols in the cards that you can start memorizing, not even like voluntarily. They'll just get imprinted in your brain and inform your readings as you grow as a reader. So
it's really helpful, I feel like, as well, and particularly in the court cards, because when you've got an entire suit that represents one element, and then you have court characters that represent their own element, and what that means within, and the power of the court character that corresponds to that. And so you can see both of those in your cards.
Yeah, and how they contradict each other, and it's really interesting. Yeah, I like the water is passive, but like fire is active, and working with those energies also helps you understand the direction of the reading. It can really change everything, really, when you look at the cards.
We were talking a little bit earlier about the knights in your deck, and I know a lot of people have difficulty with the court cards and interpreting the court cards, and sometimes I still struggle with it, even though I feel like I have an okay grasp of it. But your knights in particular I love because of the movement that they represent. But can you talk a little bit about creating the court cards, or maybe not even creating them, how you respond to them now, what they mean to you? And do you have that same difficulty?
I used to. Before I created Lilifer, actually, I didn't fully understand what their role was in the tarot. And actually, as I was creating the deck and reading a little bit more about them, I figured it was my chance to create court cards that made sense, like at first glance, like, okay, you get a sense of the movement, of the energy, of their attitude, what they're feeling. So that was helping me. And that's why the knights are all moving towards the right, and they're very active. They're in movement. They're usually with their, like this animal, like riding a giraffe. Oh wait, no.
The right.
Yeah, but for them it's the right.
Oh, they're in the car.
For them.
Oh yeah. Oh, here. For you. I've only worked in the entertainment industry for more than 20 years, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but
so they're all moving to the right.
They're moving to the right, because I remember learning in history class when I was maybe 11. We were studying those propaganda posters in Russia and the USSR, and they explained to us that the left represents the past, the right represents the future. So if you're turned to the left, you're going the right. You're contemplating the past, and that's okay, but you can't get stuck there. You have to keep moving. So that's why the knights are going to the right.
I love that, and I love that when you talk about creating court cards that you can understand what they mean as soon as you look at them. The Knight of Swords is one of my favorite cards in the deck, and it's one of the characters who's riding a raven.
Yeah.
Like a giant raven and flying through the air, the element of air. So that's really kind of incredible.
Those were really fun to draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from a choice perspective, each of the suits corresponds to a different color.
Yes.
And what I find really interesting about your deck is that when most deck creators who create color correspondences for a suit, it's the background of the card that is the correspondence. And for you, it's the color of the characters that are in the suits primarily. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to use particular colors to represent a suit and work with that color throughout the suit? And does it?
Well, it's all again based on the elements. So if the suit of wands is fire, then it was going to be red, yellows, oranges, browns. Then the pentacles is earth, so it was more greenish tones. It depends on the element that it represents. So for the swords, it's air, so it's a little tricky. So it's like more like a purple, because I was thinking air, thought, crown chakra, those colors.
That's cool. That's cool. to have that chakra correspondence in that. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about find out about was in the first edition versus the second edition, the choices that you made in changing the numbering system, the gold foil, what you feel that adds to it, the choice of cardstock, and we talked a little bit about having that UV coating, which brings the color out a bit more. Can you just talk a little bit about your process, your technical process?
Well, this is the gold edition, and what it came to be. It was just really a result of past experiences with printing decks and feedback. I listened to feedback a lot. I asked people. We did a Kickstarter, right? So I had a whole community that I could consult. And I could ask them, what's your favorite cardstock? What's your favorite finish? Should I put, gold here or there? I wanted to involve people, not just because I wanted to please them, but because I wanted to make something that was useful and that people, made. I wanted to make people happy, but also make a good product. And thanks to them, we came to some really good decisions. And we chose a great cardstock. There was a lot of back and forth with the printers too, a lot of samples. Just wanted to get it right, because I had some disappointments in the past and I didn't want to go through that again.
And the gold foil on this is really special.
It's cute.
It's cute. It's cute.
I think it's cute. Fancy cute.
But it's not what I love about it is it's not overbearing. It's not like big splotches of gold. It's little highlights and bits.
I just wanted to bring out the artwork just enough. I didn't want it to be too overpowering, and I didn't want it to be covered in gold, because there was no reason for it really. Yeah.
One of the things that I also like that I don't feel gets enough attention and people talk about much are the card backs.
Oh my God, that was a nightmare. It took me weeks to figure out, and in the end it was just so simple, but wow.
Did you do
there were
one?
many versions.
Yeah.
I went crazy. It was a bad time.
Did this take you the longest of anything else to create?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
I kept going back and forth. I could not figure it out. And so it wasn't supposed to look like that, but I drew this little rainbow on a piece of paper and I scanned it and I thought it was cool, so I just reversed it and put it but still it felt a little empty. And then I found these little doodles that I'd made with the hearts and the snakes. So I scanned that and I just applied it on top, and I was like, oh, that's it. But yeah, no, that took weeks. It was, yeah. I love it now, but it took a while to get to something I enjoyed.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. I only noticed today, because there's so much going on in this card back, I only noticed today it's not reversible.
Yes, true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which I like. I like to know when I'm pulling a card.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect the way that I shuffle it, but I like to know when I'm pulling it, it doesn't affect me anticipating that it's going to be a reverse.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't bother me either. Yeah, because I had second thoughts about that, but decided to go with it, and yeah, I don't mind. Yeah.
It's also interesting because this character that you have at the top of the card, if it's upright, they're rising up, and if it's reversed, they're going down. So that's kind of an interesting...
Maybe it's Lucifer.
Maybe.
Falling from grace.
Which is a good entry into my next question. Ooh. Why is this called the Lilifer Tarot?
Well, it's Lilith and Lucifer in one word. Because they were the two entities that inspired it. I'm not really sure how we got there, but I had the name of the deck before I started making anything. I didn't even know what it was going to be. I just had the name. Because I used to say a little prayer in the morning back in Joshua Tree in my garden in the morning, and I included both of them in that prayer. It was just more like a raising energy type of thing that I did in the morning to start my day. And I don't know, one day the name Lilifer just kind of clicked, and I thought, I should try to make something. And I think I started with the magician, and then I did the fool. Yeah, and once I had drawn the magician, I was like, okay, I've got something. Let's keep going. And then within 2 weeks, I had the whole major arcana, and then I just continued from there.
That's incredible. One of the things that this deck has that no other deck has that I'm aware of are the two bonus cards that are the characters or the entities that the deck is named after. So you have a Lilith card and you have a Lucifer card. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? And where did they come in the process?
So they weren't supposed to be in the deck, but when the campaign got funded, I wanted to reward people for helping me make it happen so fast, and I decided to create 2 more cards, Lilith and Lucifer. I was a little scared of doing that because I know people might not be into the idea of having Lucifer in their deck, or even Lilith, who people still think of as this horrible demon in some situations. So, but I thought it was also a chance to talk about them and to show them how I saw them and my experience of them, which had been nothing but positive, really. I just really identified with them a lot.
And this is Lilith, on the cover of the box.
She's not scary at all.
No. No, she's very loving, in fact.
Yeah, I realized that she's holding the wolf, right? And I think the wolf is the shadow. I think, and she's holding it. So it's, again, she represents that process of integration.
And so if you pull that card, then that is something that you would be thinking about in your reading that process of integration?
Yeah. It would be kind of like a joker card, but like more of a warm encouragement to be yourself, like not in a, just in a very, I don't know how to say. Just like embrace really like the fullness of who you are, no matter how terrible you might be feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what she does for me, so.
And what about the Lucifer card?
He's the outcast, the scapegoat. Yeah, I also identify with him a lot.
Your Lucifer looks like a fun guy to hang out with.
I mean, he was cool until he was cast out of heaven. He was the brightest, glowy. He was like, he sparkled like millions of diamonds. Like, he was the description of Lucifer in the Bible is really stunning. And then, but he was shining too bright, and he was too proud, and he was, kicked out. So, not cool. I like him. I don't like bullies, so I like Lucifer.
I love that. I'm curious to know what your practice is. So you made this powerful and resonant oracle deck, and then you created this exuberant and really, again, I'll repeat myself and say powerful tarot deck that has connected with so many people. Where is your practice? Like, where do you come from and approach? Why is this even something that you're doing?
Well, that's a good question. I think I'm just, I don't know.
I mean, what's your I guess what I'm saying is, where did you connect with tarot and oracle and divination in your life and grow to this point?
I can't really tell you why I'm doing it, but I can tell you what it's doing for me, and it's healing. Really, it's been really healing. Creating the oracle first was very healing, because making something is one thing, but then when you put it out there and you find out that people connect with it in ways that you couldn't even imagine, you don't feel so alone anymore. And so that whole experience was just intense and magical, and I'm just so grateful for it. I mean, it blows me away. And same thing happened with Lilifer. I thought people would not really connect with it. I thought it would be like a one-off thing, and people are loving it, so I'm really, really excited. Woo!
Sorry. Someone is excited.
Yes.
I'm so into what you're saying. I think that's really, really incredible. The last thing I kind of want to ask you about is, I asked you about your favorite cards in this deck and your favorite characters. What are some of your favorite decks outside of the decks that you created? Other decks that you like to work with, or that resonate with you, or that you have a history with?
Yeah, I can tell you the ones I use the most is the Cosmic Tarot. That Spanish deck I mentioned earlier that inspired Lilifer is called the Great Esoteric Tarot. Yes, I think it's from the 70s, and the Cosmic Tarot is from the 80s. And the Tarot of Pagan Cats is amazing.
Yes.
I love it. It doesn't sound like much, but the illustrations are just gorgeous, and there's so much detail, and it's so easy to read with. And I'm not even really a cat person. Like, I like cats, but I don't care. But I love this deck. It's
Be careful what you say.
No, I love cats, but I don't. Anyway.
No, I know what you mean.
It's a great deck. It's really beautiful.
And the deck that you're referring to as the Great Esoteric Tarot is also known as the El Gran Tarot Esoterico, which I think a lot of people know it by. And you told me also that you like Marseille decks in general, even though you have some trouble with the pip cards.
I never really learned to read with Marseille. I would have to really study it more. But I'm always drawn to it, maybe because I'm French. I think it's a thing. It's also the first time I saw a picture of a tarot deck, it was in Marseille. It's the most common. My mom had a book about it at home that I used to flip through, but we didn't have the cards, so just a book. So to me, that was tarot in my mind. So I think that's why I'm just attached to it. I usually just flip through it, but I don't really read with it. I just, Yeah,
no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I think Marseille is a very particular method or approach to reading.
Yeah. It's hard for me because, like I said, I'm very visual and I need pictures. And the more complex, the better. So even though Lilifer is actually pretty simple in terms of illustration, it's not super detailed. I guess it's more about conveying a feeling. Yeah.
Which makes sense, the emotion that you're working with.
Yeah, it's always, I always say my process is intuitive, but that's really all it is. It's, I don't feel like I control much of what happens. It's, it's my hands that do their thing.
The magician, as above, so below.
Yeah, I'm just a catalyst.
I want to open it up to
Yes.
questions, unless before we do that, if there's anything that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to talk about, okay.
Yeah.
Then I'd like to open it up for questions if anybody has any questions for Marion. I know you do. It's always hardest the first one. Yes, Karis.
Hi. I haven't spent time with this deck, and now I'm really excited to. Thank you for speaking about it. I'm curious in terms of the process of working so quickly. Did you find yourself, I know for myself when I'm working on something creative, sometimes the first thing I do, at the end I'll go back and look at the first thing and maybe make adjustments.
Yeah.
Because I found the voice along the way. Did that happen? Did you go back and kind of readdress some things? Or?
So I went back when I got lost further down the road. Like if I got stuck, I would go back to what I created first, and it just put me back in that I don't know, the energy, or I don't know. Yeah, so it was actually guiding me, which is weird because usually the first thing is usually the right thing, and I try to trust that more. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, Michaeline.
Can you talk a little bit about your time in Joshua Tree? I mean, I know a lot of, it's very much an artist conclave, and sort of how that inspired you or affected you, and how long were you there?
I was there for almost 2 years, and it was very strange. It's a very interesting place because it's kind of, it wants you to make things, and you can't not make them. Otherwise, it'll just like torture you. It's a very strange place. I don't know. I was having all these ideas, and I was working so fast, and I was not really understanding what was happening to me. I don't know what's up with this place, but I recommend a retreat to any creative person who's experiencing some kind of like block, because it was very healing. But it didn't heal me just creatively, emotionally, physically also. I felt energized and supported. It was very, very strange.
It's a magical place.
Did you do both the tarot and the oracle?
Yes. The oracle first and the tarot later, in my second year. Yeah. I haven't created a deck in LA yet. I'm a little nervous about it. I would like to, but I don't know if it'll happen.
You've created some amazing work here, though. I've seen it.
I have.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I would love to see it in the deck or something like that.
Yeah.
Book.
I feel like I'm creating slower here. I'm not working as fast. I get distracted, or I get stuck. There's too much. It feels very noisy. Yeah.
Maybe noise is something for you to
Maybe
work
I
with.
could tap into that. Yep. Tap into the chaos. Yeah.
Make sense of the chaos. Yes.
Is the artwork that you are talking about making now, is it very different from the deck?
I still do a lot of watercolor work in my personal practice. That's what I tend to do the most naturally. It's easy for me to work in watercolors. It just kind of flows. So that's my go-to. But if I make another deck, I think I will do something different. I don't know. I do enjoy working with a lot of colors now, so I think I want to do that. I also want to make like cards, but are more like games. Not really an oracle, but like something that's more playful. around emotions probably, but still deep, and there's always a dark twist, but it's a good thing. I don't want to scare people. I make very like cute things that trick you into doing the hard work. You know, that's my approach.
That is a beautiful thing to do. That's a beautiful.
Yeah. You don't know what you're
type of
getting
creation.
into.
Yeah. What other type to two of the questions that we've had? What other sort of mediums do you feel comfortable working in besides watercolor?
Just watercolors
Just
lately,
water.
yeah.
Well, with the reclaim you did
Yes.
ink,
Well,
right?
that was yeah, because I was coming from. I mean, for years and years, I was working only with black ink or charcoal. Very, very like actually dark, bleak work, actual scary stuff. And there was a complete switch. I don't know what happened. It was pretty much overnight, and I started using colors. It was back in Berlin. And I still don't know how it happened or why, but it led to this, so I'm cool with it. But yeah,
Well, it'll be,
I was in a dark place, I'll say that, so maybe it's better now.
it sounds like it. I hope so.
I'm happier.
Good. Then it is better. It'll be fun to see in 20 years the progression of your work and the
Yes.
history, and I hope you keep a lot, all of that old
I do.
stuff. And
Yeah, I hold on to stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have so many ideas. I have a little too many, and I get frustrated because I want to do everything at once, and it's hard to choose one thing, and I'm working on that.
I
but
know that.
There's
feeling.
more
If
coming.
you find the answer to that, let me know, because I struggle with that
will.
all the time. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes.
Hey.
Do you want to tell us when the tower took over on the neighborhood? What happened? It was beautiful.
Oh my God. Oh my
Can
gosh.
you repeat the question?
So Karim is my neighbor.
Uh-huh.
There was an incident around the corner the other day. I had a box of damaged first edition Lilifer decks, and I meant to, I don't know what I was doing. What was I doing? I put it on the hood of our car, right? We drove out with the decks on the car without noticing they were still there. And at the stoplight, when we braked, the box of decks fell onto the street. We had no idea. And when we came back a few hours later, there were Lilifer cards scattered all across the street, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And it was so magical, and I was mortified, but it was amazing. And the next day, a bunch of people wrote me, they were posting stories. I found these tarot cards on the floor, whose are they? And people were picking them up on their way to work as little messages from the universe.
Wow.
It was so cool. So it made me feel better. Also, I did go back and pick them up later at night because I was really embarrassed. And I don't like to litter, but.
Littering messages. I hope you took some pictures.
Yeah, we have pictures and videos.
Okay. Are you going to post some,
Like
maybe?
the most massive spread ever.
It was crazy.
The great grand tableau.
Now I want to see
Yeah.
the Berlin deck.
Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I think it's so fascinating that you were diagnosed in the midst of all of this, when you had the healing tool already in
Yeah.
place, because I feel like it just carried you through that in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
But your whole thing with making something cute to invite people into shadow work, but the shadow is created in childhood largely, and I feel like both of your decks invite people in to relate to the inner child.
Yes.
And then that whole accident too. Like
Yeah.
grown people on their way to work, they're
Yeah.
in a hurry, they don't have time, and all of a sudden they're 8 years old because they found
Yes.
a card, you know?
No, definitely.
It's all magical.
It is, and the childlike playfulness. I don't know. That's what I always want to create somehow. It's just what comes through these days, and I try to go with it. Even though sometimes I'm like, that's too cute. Like I can't. Like no, but maybe that's what people need. I don't know.
And you had a question?
Oh, just either when you were creating the cards or when you look back at the Lilifer deck now, is there a musical artist or style of music that connects with you or informs the deck?
So I don't really listen to music when I'm creating. Well, it depends what I'm working on. But when I was making this, I don't think I was listening to anything in particular. Actually, I used to draw to music all the time when I was making much darker work. So I would get into the zone, you know, it was always like The Cure and things like that. But now it's different. I actually listen to church music a lot. I feel like that helps me get into that space of channeling, I guess. I don't know why. I'm just drawn to those choirs and angelic sounds, and yeah, it helps me more than other kinds of music.
I think that's a great question, because I think that the correspondence of different forms of art and how they affect other forms of art,
Yeah.
and particularly, you know, you're dealing with different mediums. You're
Yeah, yeah.
dealing with vision versus sound, so you're.
Oh, if I sit down to create something, what I'm listening to will definitely influence where my hands go and the colors I choose. So it depends on what I'm working on.
And so maybe that's not something you want to do if there's that influence and you want to be able to channel something.
Yeah, it would depend on what I'm creating. Yeah.
I don't know if you ever do this, but I do automatic drawing sometimes,
Yeah.
and I find that music is almost paramount to that process for the way that I am channeling it, because it becomes something, and then the automatic drawing
Yeah.
is, I usually title after the song that I'm listening
Yes.
to, and I can like get something off in like 3 minutes or however long the song is, and then it's done. Have you ever done?
Yeah.
Do you ever do any sort of automatic drawing or anything like that?
No, not really. No, I don't. I must have. Maybe I've tried that.
That's okay. Anyway.
I mean, I kind of do that, but it's a little different what I do. I guess it's still me. I'm not really. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's good. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes.
So first, thank you so much for the decks there. I have all of them. I don't have the first edition of Lilifer. I have the gold edition because I didn't understand it at all. I was like,
yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
But first of all, I want to thank you for being open about your diagnosis of a mental health condition. I work in the mental health field. I'm an advocate and policy person and a person with lived experience of a mental health condition. And I think so often it is misunderstood about where we can find our healing, and being able to talk about the power of art and the power of addressing trauma is so important that we don't talk about. It's like, take your meds and shut up kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that, and didn't know that about you, so I want to share that with my colleagues and in the field in particular, because I've also found I'm not a traditional tarot reader, but I connect with the decks and the art for my own healing. Like I can look at the pictures and do that deep connection and work. So I just wanted to thank you for speaking openly about that.
Thank you. That's so cool.
I think that's one of the things that I love about tarot and a variety of oracle decks that I found as well, but particularly with tarot, that you don't have to be a reader to benefit from the tarot and to interact with the tarot.
Yeah.
You can, and you don't have to do it with other people necessarily. You can interact with the cards on your own and do the work that helps to reveal who you are and how you can deal with things that you have trouble with, perhaps, or amplify the things that you know are your strengths. And it's amazing that like the spectrum of life is within that.
And each card is like a little mirror, right, facing back at you. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yes, all the way back.
Hi. There's a question here. When you do tarot card readings, do you use your own decks?
I do now. Yes. I've
Can you repeat the questions just for
He's
the...
asking if I use my own decks from when I read
Okay.
to read tarot, and I do not. I used to not. I don't know. It's really weird, but I have a hard time loving my own work. It takes some time, and so it took several years for me to start using my actual tarot decks. So, yeah. Same with Reclaim. I used to not use it at all, and now I tend to pull a card more often now, but yeah, I'm afraid of my own work. It's very weird.
When you're reading, whether you're reading for yourself or for other people, do you ever use both decks in conjunction with each other? Do you combine them?
Sometimes, because I find that they work well together. Maybe because like you were saying, the figures, the kind of flowy, curvy shapes, they kind of they have little conversations pretty easily, I find. And I've seen people use them together too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I think we have time maybe for one more question, and then I think you're going to sign some decks. If
yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, and also, you're the last question. And also on the table over here, there's some other, in addition to the decks, there's some other prints and pins and things related to the deck. And
we'll
Marion,
put the artwork on the table for you to flip through also.
Can I show a few?
Yeah,
Just
go
like
ahead.
so that people on the video can see. So these cards are much larger, obviously.
Yes.
So you'll be able to look through this as well and see the original artwork. Yes, your question.
You talked about the backs of the cards with the rainbow, and that they're not mirrored. So I'm just curious, as a reader, as a creator, do you encourage reversals, or are you a fan of them? Or
So I read with the reversed meanings, but I don't. People can do whatever they want, really. I know a lot of people just read with the cards upright, and that's totally fine. I mean, I always encourage people to not even use them as a tarot deck, but have fun with them. Like use them, pull a card, put them in their wallet. Have fun with them. So there's really no system or approach that goes with it. Yeah, we really want people to feel free to use my work in any way they want. Yeah.
Cool. I want to thank Marion for coming out and talking with me today about the deck in front of all of you. And I also want to thank Philip Gibson and William Toro, the owners of Tarot Arts, where we are sitting in this incredible palace of tarot, oracle, divination cards, and everything that entails. It was a really special afternoon for me, so thank you so much, and thank you guys for coming out.